Hello, Mr. Shahid. It's so great to have you today with us for Life and Style magazine.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Looking back, how did Brave CF begin? What was the original vision behind creating it?
The vision was from the beginning of 2016 when we started Brave Combat Federation, all the way till Brave 100 today after 9 years. The vision has been very clear by His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa, and it was to reform the MMA industry from from an event business to a sports business, really. And to be honest, this was not the intention to create a new brand or an organization. The idea was very organic because it was a need of the hour. And a lot of people don't know the story that before Brave Combat Federation, we had KHK MMA team. And this was a team where we had some of the biggest names in mixed martial art like Khabib Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, Frankie Edgar. And you also had the Irish team from Conor McGregor's coach John Kavanagh. You had James Gallagher, France Malumbo. That was the only time when you'd think about Team Khabib and Team SBG together ever. I think after that, we have not seen that happen, but that happened here in Bahrain. And that was a team. But then we also had athletes like Hamza Kohij and Eldar Eldarov, who are not competing at the biggest stage at that time, but they were at the professional level. And then you had the amateur team, which is the National Federation of Bahrain. So there was different tiers of athletes. And we realized that if they were living the life of a sports athlete in mixed martial art, the results would be much more better, you know. So, but unfortunately, the industry does not allow that. And the only question His Highness asked was, how do we change that, you know, and how can we make sure that what we are able to do with these list of athletes, how can we do that for another 200,000 athletes that's there around the world? And that's where our work began, and we started putting the idea together of a global ecosystem that is, it's not a new idea, but it was something that we learned from already existing structure of FIFA and every other sports that's out there. We just needed to introduce MMA to a sports business model. That was the most important thing. But we also knew that that does not happen overnight, and it needed to be something that you had to be within the industry, know the industry, so your words are heard. On the other hand, you had to make sure that you had some legitimacy behind you to make sure that what you're proposing for the future of the whole mixed martial art industry, you needed to have some legacy behind you as well. And without that, nobody would take you seriously. So 9 years, if you look at our history, that's the legacy that we have put together. That's the seeds that we have set together for mixed martial art. And I think that the vision has always been one, and that is the reforming of the industry itself.
So you did mention that you took inspiration from other sports. So did you have like a blueprint, or like how did it go?
Oh, you never have a blueprint, and we still don't think that there is a blueprint existing, that it is a cut and paste model. We learn from the mistakes, we learn from real-time data that we are acquiring from different countries. So again, if it is one country, one region, is so much more easier. But when it is the whole world, 5 different continents, it's a different ball game completely, right? So we had to learn as we go forward. But if you're looking from the inspirational side of things, I think from the governance, we know that the most structured international sports federation like FIFA is something that you want to look at. But then you're also looking at the likes of cricket and the IPLs, which are the new leagues that came out and did become successful in its own way. And that's something that we also have to absorb, you know. But at the same time, you also see organizations like NBA that really work on having the largest market already with them, which is the United States of America. But at the same time, they see the value in globalizing. So when you see the biggest market trying to globalize for more revenue diversity, we understood the globalization factor is not the wrong direction to go, it is the right direction to go. So a combination of everything else, from the governance, from the startup franchise model leagues, all the way to the importance of globalization, we took everything that we can, took the inspiration from it. But at the same time, like when you have McDonald's, when you go to India, you have to have Maharaja, or when you come to Middle East, you have Mecca Arabia, you know. Doesn't matter how big the brand is, you always have to localize it with globalization in mind, and that's what Brave has done, that we understood that going to every country, one of the first localization is within your industry itself. You have to be adaptable to your industry, and it is not something that you can change quickly. You wouldn't have the industry with you, so we had to operate in stealth for the past 9 years, and that's where our governance collaboration with IMMAF, everything came in the last 9 years. So yes, we did take the inspiration, but today, if you ask for the blueprint, there's only one blueprint, and that's Brave Combat Federation.
So the next question was, Did you ever imagine Brave would reach the milestone of 100 events across so many countries? And I think the answer is yes, because you started this with a lot of conviction. And 9 years, you've kept going. And
Absolutely.
yes.
And that's something that we always knew, that when we started Brave, we knew that the values that we had to keep with us to make this successful is to be brave, you know, because as you go forward and you always bring change, we all know that in any industry, people don't like change, you know, it's not easily accepted. And that's fine. And we understood that that's going to be the way it is. So the only thing that makes change permanent is consistency. And we knew that we have to be consistent in hosting events. We need to be consistent in making sure that we travel around the world, giving opportunity to athletes from around the world, building more stars consistently. And we kept doing that over and over again. And that's one of the resilience stories of Brave. When we had COVID-19, the whole world stopped, and especially sports, because they're event-based. And it even should have impacted the combat sports a little bit more than any other sports, because we're not an outdoor sport. Most of our events happen indoor. But Brave and UFC was the only organizations that continued to do events during that time. But the difference was UFC had the Fight Island in Abu Dhabi, and Brave had the Combat Kingdom here in Bahrain. But at the same time, Brave did not stop globalizing, and we did travel to events in Sweden and Romania, which today a lot of youngsters look at those continents, they realize that you even had Andrew Tate fighting in a Brave event. They never knew that, and that was when we had an event in Romania at that time. We still made sure that the athletes have all the opportunity they can get, even whether they're from Europe or in the Middle East or the Asian region. So we kept that consistency. We were disciplined enough, and again, thanks to His Highness Sheikh Khalid and his legacy in sports, we were able to get a lot of information of how to be a safe event during the COVID-19, and we made sure that all the knowledge we could get from what was happening here in Bahrain and how well we handled COVID during the time, during the pandemic, we learned from a lot, and we made sure that that is implemented in our events and kept it safe and made sure that the athletes did not go hungry.
At what point did global scale become non-negotiable?
It was always non-negotiable, and that's why if you look at the journey of Brave, September 23rd, 2016 was our first event, and 2017 we started traveling around the world already. So when you're looking at that 3 to 4 months, the last quarter of 2016, that was the only time we were in Bahrain, and there was 2 events in Bahrain, and then we started traveling around the world already. And that was part of the plan, because what we do here in Bahrain and what we've achieved here in Bahrain, we knew that with the leadership and the vision of His Highness, we knew we would be successful. We knew that it's about having the right team that can make it happen. And we had a fantastic team even till today that we're very proud of, that put a lot of effort and sacrifice into making this happen. So the result of Bahrain in MMA completely as a national ecosystem speaks for itself of what we are able to achieve. But our objective was to make sure that that ecosystem is shared with every other country that we go to. And we didn't know how many countries we would travel to. We just knew one thing, that we have to go to as many countries as possible, especially the emerging markets and the markets that does not have international events. Forget about mixed martial art, but not even international events going into those countries a lot. For whatever might be the reason, might be the political reason, might be the economic reason. But we want to make sure that we want to go into these countries and make sure that we plant the seeds of mixed martial art as a sports economy. And I think we're seeing that in Bahrain in a very successful format, and eventually that spread into GCC. And if you look at Brave, we continue to enter into markets like Africa for the first time. There's no international MMA organization that entered the African continent, and we were the first ones, and that continued with multiple events around in 38 countries in 5 continents today.
Yes, I did notice that. You actually went like on untreaded paths. So you were the first people to tread on those paths, like you mentioned in Africa. That was very brave of you.
Yeah.
No pun intended. But how did you cope with the risks?
So basically the foundation is always, as long as your intention with your brand or your organization is sports values, we know what sports stands for. Sports brings people together, unites the world together, and most importantly, when you look at the young generation, the future generation, I think I cannot say it in any other way, but I think combat sports and MMA is really the microcosm of life itself, you know. So we knew that the young generation definitely needed that hope and inspiration to make sure that I can achieve my dream, I can achieve my talent, and my talent can take me somewhere else, where they want to go. But again, it all depends on organizations that will give them that platform to shine. And it was that simple for us to go into a country. We want to give our values. The moment you give your values, it's not about what you can take. The 90% of the organizations that's not going into the emerging markets, and why we are the only organization to be able to achieve this, is only because our intention always is what we can give to the community. And once you start giving to the community, everybody sees the value, and they will know that this is what we need and this is what we are developing. So eventually they will become a part of the organization and our vision itself. And that was something that we knew that it transcends race, culture, country. Everybody have the same goal. And that's why we say that sports is a language in itself, and everybody understands that language. And we made sure that every country we go to, we bring that value in, from the grassroots development program, creating a strong governance, making sure that everybody has the opportunity to be financially stable.
How did you balance global ambition versus local authenticity early on? Because you mentioned like it is a lot about generosity as well. It's wanting to give them a platform finally to tell them that, yeah, you can do it. We're going to give you a place to stand. So how did you keep up with that? How did you not let other things distract you? Because it's not easy.
Yes, I think the moment you don't have cultural knowledge, it is going to be difficult. I don't think it has anything to do with the market or the industry itself. It is a lot to do with how much you understand culture. If you want to bring innovation, innovation does not come unless you have a problem to solve. And that solution is something that doesn't exist, and that's what you're going to be bringing on the table, and that becomes an innovation. But if an innovation is a useless innovation, that nobody needs it, and it doesn't have anything to solve, I don't know if that's really innovation itself, or if it has any value. So for us, I think one of the key benefits of learning about the culture was, I think that was a free gift that I've got by being born in Bahrain. So I always say that being in Bahrain, you are living around all different cultures, and to a point that we almost have our own language of communication with each other as a mix of multiple other languages. So that is an advantage I'll always be grateful for, and it helped me a lot during my travels around the world and taking Brave to different countries. And I would say that was one of the biggest factors of understanding the culture. And when we go to each country, the first thing we look at is what's the culture, how much do we understand these athletes, their background, and where they come from, and what their interests are and what their values are. And that is something that we always look at, and that's what we were taught from where we are here in Bahrain. And we go and implement the same thing in other countries as well, So I think the cultural factor was so important to keep the authenticity localized in wherever we go. But again, Brave is a global organization. But at the same time, every country we go to, if you ask today to Slovenia, they would say that Brave is a Slovenian organization. And if you ask Bahrain, Brave is a Bahraini organization. And that's the same story in every country that we go to, because it becomes from a house to a home only when there is care, and that's the difference, right? So Brave becomes a part of their country because they know that we care, and we're looking at 50% of how to build the economy through mixed martial art, but the other 50% is how we can contribute back to the industry itself and to the local talents, most importantly. So that care is what really matters, and once you put that care in, everybody adopts you as their own. And that's what makes us today, when we say truly global as a word, I don't think global is an enough word for representing Brave. And that's why we always use that it is the only truly global MMA organization, because we understand being global is not just letting everybody see who you are on television or social media. It is to go out there, be there, and live with them and feel them and care for them and understand them, and then giving them back of what they really require.
This much of your journey, you've accomplished a lot, and it definitely is not without effort. A lot of effort went into this. So what were the biggest doubts or hurdles in the early days, whether finding the right people, convincing partners, or building the brand?
I think it was to introduce a change, or making people understand what is the change that you're actually bringing to the industry. I think that's always is the biggest challenge every time, because it's something that you cannot see, and you don't want to believe something that you don't see, and that's always been the challenge everywhere that we travel to. But at the same time, we also knew that actions and results were the only way to convince people, and we didn't rely on making people believe for us to actually implement. So our execution had something that had nothing relied on anything else. It was purely on go out there and get it done, because that is what is required. But again, 9 years, one of the biggest challenge I would say is that for people to understand what is Brave Combat Federation actually doing outside of what they see on television. Today they look at us and they see some of the biggest talents coming out of Brave. Today they look at us and they see us as the most global MMA organization, traveled to 38 countries. Today they look at Brave and they see how much of storytelling that we do from the content and the media perspective. All that is what you see, and behind the scenes, that's one thing that a lot of people don't see, what Brave has been doing in terms of building a foundation, in terms of the strategy of how an athlete who might not be relevant to your event or your market or for your ticket sales, but still is actually being put in the main event of your fight card, and you don't understand, it doesn't make any business sense. But ultimately, when that individual who is an immigrant from Chechnya, living in Sweden, fighting in Hyderabad, India in the main event, makes no business sense from a promoter's perspective, but once the fight is over and he cannot leave the venue and go to his transportation because the crowd just love this guy, and eventually he turns into one of the biggest superstars in mixed martial art called Gamza Chimaev. That's when people realize that there was something there that nobody else saw, But that process of making that happen during that time, it's so hard to convince people that this is going to work and this is the right thing to do. And for us, we had one value that I always heard from His Highness, and he says that once you do the right thing, you can never go wrong, So just do the right thing, and if that was the right thing to do when you see a talent, and let the world know this talent, and if that means it might be against your ticket sales or the business plan when you're looking at it, sure, but once the right thing is recognized, you will see that everybody accepts it. And so even till today, to be honest, Brave 100 is a celebration for the first time to do two things. One is to acknowledge, celebrate the legacy of 9 years. So a lot of people don't know what we were doing behind the scenes, and we want to be out there telling people what we have achieved and show them all the actual tangible results on the table, so everybody understands what we've been doing for the past 9 years. But at the same time, we also want this to be a toast towards what's going to be coming in the future, and that reform that we have been trying to achieve over the past 9 years. We've set the foundations, we set the seeds, and from Brave 100 onwards forward, we're going to be announcing every single format that is going to bring that reform on the table. And this is that time we're going to be being loud and talking to the world and telling them that here we are, and this is going to be the new world of mixed martial art.
All right, so all this time the foundation was being built, and now Brave is ready to showcase, this is us now.
I think the MMA industry is ready. We were ready from day one, but we had to make sure that why we traveled in 38 countries was to make sure that we get everyone, because we're talking about changing the mixed martial art industry, reforming the mixed martial art industry in itself. And when you think about a sports is global, it's too big. Not one company, one brand, one country. It doesn't matter how much of $1 trillion, $1 billion company you are, you won't be able to control the whole sport or change the whole sport combined together. It is impossible. Sports is much more bigger than anything that's out there, and it keeps expanding and growing bigger in itself. So we knew that to make this happen, you have to be united. It is to bring the whole industry together, people that have the same vision, that's looking forward to the right reform. Those are the people that you want to bring together. So when we started Brave, you see us collaborating with the international governing body, because we knew without governance, there's no security. Without governance, there is no format that we can develop the young generation and the talents that's out there. So we made that collaboration with the International Federation. Every country we go to, we work with the National Federation, but we don't ignore the smaller organizations that's out there. As a Brave organization to go out there and wipe out the smaller organization. No, we collaborate with them. So that's why Brave is the only organization with the largest co-promotion model that has been existing today. So every country we go to, we work with the local promotions because they have spent their time and effort for a long time trying to build the industry itself. and then we empower the national federation, because without them there is no national governance. But it doesn't stop there. You want to make sure that the talents that's coming out of these grassroots development programs that the governance and the federations are working towards, how do you globalize them? And that's where Brave comes in, and we work together, combine together, and with our global relationships, we take it beyond MMA and collaborate with the actual sports ministries and the authorities of the countries, and make sure that our media power comes into the country and collaborates with their media, so that we move the attention towards MMA, because every country has their own major sports and it doesn't change. When you look at India, you have cricket. When you look at the GCC, we love football. Every country has their own big sports. But when we bring in combat sports and mixed martial art, it is something that we've seen that the whole world loves it, and the growth is faster than any other sports that's out there. So there is a value for it, and we just need to make sure that the media in those countries, the mainstream media, actually sees that. And that's where, when Brave comes on board in the country, national sports authorities, national MMA federations, local organizations, the talents and media, we bring them all together and we become the pillar behind that, just like what we're trying to do at a global level, to be the pillar behind at a global industry itself. So yeah, so that's basically the idea of going into each country and how we work together. We don't leave them out, we bring them all together. United, we're much stronger.
I think you mentioning that working with the governments initially itself, it shows that it was always going to be more than just a business. It was always going to be about impacting the world, the global economy, etc., and all that. So it's cool to see that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sports have that power.
So how do you see Brave CF compared to other MMA promotions around the world? What makes your journey unique?
I think, first of all, it's very difficult to compare Brave with any other organization that's out there in MMA today. I wouldn't put all the organizations under the same basket, but I would definitely put the big organizations very different from Brave, because the big organizations have their own journeys, their own stories, their own struggles, and eventually it turns into a business mode where you do raise a lot of funds and investments. And one of the biggest challenges when those investments come in is also that you are restricted from being able to do things that is more on the development side of the sport rather than the development side of your organization. And when you have to choose between your organization's growth and the growth of the industry, if that is a choice, the investors would always want the growth of your organization, because that's the right thing to do. We cannot tell them that, no, the growth of the organization in the long term will benefit, because we're in the same industry itself. So if the industry grows, we grow too. But you can't have this conversation, because we're looking at short term. What's your balance sheet at the end of the year? Is it green or red? That's the question, right? So I think that puts a lot of organization out of the comparison status from ours, from Brave Combat Federation. We were lucky enough to be able to build this foundation to this stage where we are. And when we ask for investors to come on board, when we are going out there and telling that now you can be part of an Brave Combat Federation, we can bring in the private equity funds, we can bring everybody else to come and invest today. And the reason why we are able to do that confidently is because we have already done the development program stages over the past 9 years. And not many organizations that are at the top level in mixed martial arts can actually boast that and say that they had the luxury to be able to do that and spend 9 to 10 years, almost a decade, in building a foundation. They wanted to get the finance so quickly that the foundation is not strong today, and which might eventually result in a bad ending to those finances itself. And we are seeing a lot of organizations within the sports raise funds, move their strategy, or follow a new strategy because of the requirement of what the investors want, and eventually in 5 years what they were planning to raise funds for is not what they actually achieve after 5 years. It's the opposite. So I don't think from financial perspective that is one thing that makes us different. But again, on the other hand, I think Brave is looking at a completely different format going forward, and we are trying to bring the sports business model. And the sports business model requires infrastructure development program. Sports business model requires franchise-based strategies, which is going to bring in fans to be fans not just of fighters, which is the case today in MMA, but you'll be the fans of the fighters, fans of your national team, and fans of your city or your team that you support. So fans are of multiple different areas. When you look at it from a business perspective, that means you can monetize fans in 3 to 4 different ways than monetizing them just through the fighters that you have. And if that big fighters don't exist, then you're lost somehow in today's world of mixed martial art or combat sports in general. But when you look at the other sports, you could lose your biggest athlete, but you're still fan of that team, and that's the biggest difference of how you're going to continue to monetize those athletes. So you can look at it from a business perspective, and it still makes sense. But if you also look at it from the direction of how you can localize it, the question you asked me before as well, you don't have to rely on the world. Today in combat sports, you're always relying on the international world, where the biggest market, where the biggest events are happening. You want to chase that, whether as a media company or whether you're a manager or whether you're a gym. If you are not part of the biggest market, you're suffering because there's nothing going on as an economy within your country. So with Brave going and providing this new format in each country separately, I think you will always have a marker be born in these countries for mixed martial art, where you could actually have a marker Arabia in Bahrain or in GCC, and you bring it back. But Marca doesn't need the rest of the world, because you have all the Spanish La Liga stories coming through that media, and you have Real Madrid as a club that is big with that media platform, and they don't need the rest of the world really. I mean, you always will go for it, but then you have your pillars within your country that your audience or your language, people who read in your language can actually absorb and consume the content. And that is what we are establishing in every country, that makes them independent by itself. So it's a little complicated, I would say, when we speak a lot, but definitely it is. There's a huge difference between what we do and what other organizations do. So that's why we never compare ourselves with other organizations, because it would never make sense, because what we are trying to achieve and our product is very different from what combat sports industry or MMA industry is today. But ultimately, eventually, I think with the format that we're going into, it just offers more diverse content for media to absorb. It offers more better structure for athletes to monetize themselves. And most importantly, I think it creates a much better image for mixed martial in general compared to all the other sports. When you go to each country and you speak to the sports authorities, they see the value of mixed martial art and why they have to promote that sport as much as any other sport.
It's good to say that you're proud of something, you know?
Yeah.
It's good to have something to support and look forward to, and also that's great that it's not just individuals now, it's going to be more team-based as well. So
Yeah.
that's what you're saying. Your Brave MMA is going to be more team-based as well. And it seems that instead of bowing to or trying to please a board of shareholders, your business model allows them to benefit, but not exploit. So it's not about it's about letting nobody exploit the people, and the true passion for Brave is always going to be like MMA and helping athletes around the world have a platform.
And that's the actual business model as well, right? I mean, that's a successful business model. Mm-hmm. The only challenge is it's not that the investors coming on board is the wrong thing. It's just that when you raise funds and investors, the most important thing is you should have a strong idea about data that will convince them that this idea is going to be successful. And unfortunately, when a lot of organizations start as startups and they raise a lot of funds in the MMA world specifically, what happens is you don't have a case study to look back and say that this is the model that works. So that way everybody has a word in the business model. So whether your vision is right or wrong, I really don't know, but I'll tell you from my experience as an investor that this is a strategy that we think will be a no-brainer success, and we don't want to take the risks that you're taking. So they're also right in their way, but for Brave today, why I said that we are openly going out there and saying that we are in a position that we can bring any investors on board in multiple ways, because they're going to have the most successful sports investment opportunity that's ever been there, is what we're providing them. And if they question that, you have the real-time data of a whole decade to present them of how we became a sustainable business model, how we became diverse revenue model, how we were able to globalize already, not to say that, oh, we will have a global growth opportunity. No, we've already done that. And if you're talking about, but your ultimate goal is your product. Who's your product? The fighters. Would you be able to make superstars? The biggest names in mixed martial art actually came from Brave Combat Federation. So we've answered all the questions, not in just words or text or a document. We've actually answered them that is there live on Brave TV, YouTube, and on media to be seen. So it's already out there, and all the questions are answered with real actions.
So like, here's what we have, see it for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. What kinds of international feedback did you face and how did you push past it?
Oh yes, absolutely. I think opinions are out there, and you have to understand that mixed martial art was one of the sports that was born in the digital world, and relied a lot on the digital world. When mixed martial art started, nobody understood what the sport is. It looked like a bunch of people fighting in a cage. And that doesn't sound or look really good. And a lot of people couldn't understand what was going on. So the mainstream media, the television networks that you really rely on as sports didn't really cover mixed martial art. We're talking about the early 90s. And that was a position. The only way mixed martial art could survive was to actually go onto the digital media and build a community on internet. And thanks to the internet and mixed martial art, they made a very good relationship with each other, which is why the largest revenues today is through pay-per-view model, which you don't see in many other sports other than combat sports only. And that's because we are very convinced that the MMA fans are one of the most intelligent fans and one of the most loyal fans, which is why there's a huge fundraising and sponsorship opportunities in mixed martial art, because those fans are not just random fans, they are very loyal to that sport, because we grew as an industry together. But at the same time, to say the negative side, or let's say the less positive side, is those opinions really matter now. The internet opinions really matter, and we know what happens when we rely a lot on internet opinions in today's world when mixed martial art is grown to where it is today, right? It is the most global sport in the world, so that means a lot of internet opinions that's out there. So yeah, we every country that we go to, we always go and struggle with some organizations or some individuals or some media the local level who looks at you and not welcome you from a global side and say that we might not need it, they're not good enough, and we always face that. But with time, that's what I mean, that with time, when we show the care and we show the value back and what they really get from it, they actually realize, and there are and we don't rely on it, but at the same time there is a lot of places that people don't actually realize it as well, and that is part of the game, really, so we also know that once we bring this new age of mixed martial art through Brave Combat Federation, moving from Brave 100, the mixed martial art industry will change in the next 10 to 20 years. And when it grows, it becomes bigger than any organization. I don't mean Brave, the sport will be bigger than Brave as well, and it will grow around that. You will need governance, structure, all of that. It's going to be much more bigger than just a brand. When you reach there, 50 years, 70 years down the line, everybody that's in the sport might think that this was always there. Just like football today, we always look at it and say that the structure was always this way. No, there was once upon a time that they thought that paying athletes money in football was disrespecting the sport. And if someone who changed that policy and didn't sign that it is okay to pay athletes, we wouldn't have had a Lionel Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo today. But we don't remember that. We think it was always this way because it's a 150-year-old sport. And one day, mixed martial art will look at and say that they'll forget that we were in the event business. They wouldn't even realize that we ever were an event business model. And at that point, they might not even remember Brave and where this whole stories came from, where it all started from, and who was behind the vision and the idea. Maybe not, but it doesn't matter. But that's the whole point of legacy, right? In the end of the day, we are fighting for something bigger than ourselves. So why rely on getting the benefits of it for ourselves, as long as that cause is successful?
In your experience expanding globally, which regulatory or cultural barriers surprised you most, and how did you adapt?
Oh, that's a very interesting one. Yeah, I think no cultural barriers or regulations really surprised me, but it was definitely a challenge to adapt to different cultures and regulatory barriers wherever we go. In different countries, they have different thought process on what combat sports is. So that's always a challenge to sometimes go out there and do a public weigh-ins. So when you do a public weigh-ins, the fighters are checking their weight, and it is a ceremonial weigh-ins where it will be in a public area. So a lot of people who are watching it for the first time in some countries that they've never seen mixed martial art, they're actually going to see a mall that is decorated and structured for two guys to come in, take off their clothes and face to face with each other, and they're just pushing each other, or something crazy happens, and everybody's like, what just happened here, you know? And did you guys put on this show to make this happen? Like, it's so hard to understand what's going on, right? And
They're just weighing. They're
oh,
just
yeah.
weighing themselves.
It's just weighing themselves and just going at each other's face and just pushing each other, and they're like, and we're stopping them. And they're like, do you want them to fight? Do you don't want them to fight? What's going on here, you know? So
Yes, but not here.
not here. Tomorrow we'll start the fight, yeah? So those are the little things that people are like, what? So what is this? You know, what's going on? And we're like, come tomorrow to the venue, buy your tickets, and you'll actually see, you know? So those kind of things are a little bit different. And even here in Bahrain, I think when you look at mixed martial art, or in the region as well, 15 years back, it was very different. We didn't have combat sports as a professional level in the region at all. So when we're looking at it today, a lot of people look at mixed martial and they're like, you know what, it's a man's sport, and that's, if you go to an MMA event, it's for males, and then we're like, do you know that combat sports is one of the only sports that have 47%, if not 45% is female viewers. And just because we don't monetize on females does not mean that this is a male-oriented sport, you know. And this is the only sport where you can actually see the equality of opportunity between male and female. Because if you run 100 meters as Usain Bolt, and you tell a female to hit that record, it might not happen, right? But if you tell a man to go and knock out somebody in 3 seconds, and he got the fastest knockout, a female can knock out another female in 3 seconds too, and she could still have the fastest knockout and get that record, and she could still be the female fighter of the year. And that is exactly the story of Ronda Rousey, who became the female fighter of the year in ESPY, that actually took ahead of Floyd Mayweather, if I'm not mistaken. And that is a big statement. And that happens only in mixed martial art. And that shows that it is a sport that is have the highest level of equality and opportunity when it comes to males or females. The viewership is massive. And now people are realizing, and a lot of things have not still been realized, where you're looking at the world of fashion, you're looking at the world of media, you're looking at the world of influencers, you're looking at even the young YouTubers, which is a big thing in the next Gen Z, Gen Alpha world. And they are moving into combat sports. So you're seeing that every industry is now understanding the value of combat sports, because these are considered to be one of the highest level of human beings, whether it is in fitness, mental strength, in terms of inspiration and giving value to people. But at the same time, the sport itself, of what they're doing, it is the toughest sport in the world. So combined together, there's so much to learn from the sport of mixed martial art, as an athlete, as a fighter, or as a competition itself. And finally, those are the people that you want to relate to. So whether you're in the fashion business, why do they look at MMA fighters and think that combat sports athletes are going to be the perfect fit? 10 years back, we wouldn't have thought about that. We would be like, but that's luxury, fashion, and athletes. But then you're like, who do you want that clothes to be worn by? Someone with confidence or not? Someone who's fit or not? Someone who looks after himself or not? Someone who's disciplined, who's consistent? What's the image of your clothes being worn by someone? What's the image of that individual? It just checks all the boxes. And then you're like, yeah, maybe that's the direction to go. And yet that are the same people that's inspiring the next generation, who I want to sell to in the future. Yeah, it makes all the sense. And that's what we're actually seeing, how combat sports is connecting to every different industry today, and even becoming the forefronters in global diplomacy as well.
Beyond the sport, how do you want Brave to be remembered as part of Bahrain's global legacy? What does it mean to you personally that a Bahraini company is a global MMA brand now?
I think it is definitely a proud moment for everybody associated with not just Brave, but in the combat sports industry in Bahrain itself. I think it was not done by one team. I think everybody had a part to play in it. Media platforms like yourself had a big part to play in it, because sending those messages and changing the mentality of what sports is beyond sport itself, I think that's something that a lot of people in the region did not understand before. And with Brave coming on board, you really understood that sports is much more bigger than just playing games. Or for the young generation, it is going to be a big part of your tourism, big part of your promoting your culture, big part of becoming ambassadors for your country internationally, and of course the big part of changing the mentality physically and mentally for the next generation. So we want to make sure that the whole national ecosystem from creating jobs for talents. You don't have to be a fighter to have a job in mixed martial art. Today, if you're looking at Bahrain, our national federation of MMA, and the team is the official operations team for the international governing body. So if when you're looking at that side of things, the event management side, the International Federation is using Bahrain team to actually go and conduct all the World Championship, European Championship, and that shows that it happened with a lot of experience from hosting events like Brave in the country. But when you're looking at also media platforms like Arabic MMA and few others, MMA industry itself, there's a lot of media platforms that grew from this region that became in a position where they are considered to be the storytellers of Arabic MMA talents. But then you're looking at the official and the governance side, and we have females and males as one of the best officials in the region, and actually competing globally as well as referees and judges and cutmans. And when we looked at Brave One, everyone was bought, imported from outside to do all this job. And today, I don't even know what's happening with that side because I don't have to care about it anymore as hosting a Brave event. I'm more focused on giving interviews and going around because we've got a fantastic team on ground that knows their job. So that job opportunities have been increased in multiple different sectors. And we want to show that there's more we can do as sports, and Brave is an example for that. And at the global level, everywhere we travel, playing the national anthem of Bahrain always gives me goosebumps because not just because of that I am patriotic to my country and it's always nice to hear your national anthem in other countries, but it's just not about that. It's just that the idea that you are exporting your values and what you've been able to create, that is the easiest part for us. That when I go to another country and when they tell what's the business plan, I said, forget about me, look at Bahrain, and what they have achieved in Bahrain, we just want that to be implemented here, cut and paste, that's the business plan. And to be able to say that and to make that your pitch, it is definitely a proud moment for us, and we wish to continue doing that and raise the name and the flag of Bahrain around the world with Brave wherever we go to. It's 38 countries. Inshallah, we hope to achieve another 100 countries more.
Inshallah. I hope you achieve that as well. What's next after 100 events? New markets, new formats, or new innovations? Are you exploring hybrid formats, league models, media tech platforms like Brave TV, and any ambitions beyond MMA related to combat sports, youth development, and academies?
I think all of it. So when you talk about the future of Brave, I think we're looking at Brave Media Holding, and that is one thing that we know that in mixed martial art today you have to have your own media company, and that media company is something that we have developed for telling the right stories for athletes, and you don't have to rely on anybody else to tell these stories that might be relevant or not relevant for certain media. When you have your own media platform, you don't rely on that as much, and you could be confidently telling the best stories in the world. And that's something you will see in moving forward from Brave 100. The Brave Media Holding is going to take full effect and tell the best stories of athletes from around the world, and their inspiring growth to the rest of the world that have not actually seen it. But on the other hand, the franchise model is going to be introduced in 2026 called Brave National Leagues. That does not mean that the Brave Combat Federation events will not continue. The Brave Combat Federation events will continue. So you will have the old school model and the new school model combining together to bring a more diverse revenue streams in mixed martial art. But infrastructure is going to be one of the key focus for us. In any other sport that you think about it, if you don't have the right infrastructure for training, coaches, referees, and judges, and even for fighters combined together, you have to create that right infrastructure for your sports to grow. And I think when you look at football in Africa, some of the biggest talents in European football that has come from Africa, the big names that we know of, you wouldn't have got those names if Africa were just looking at talent without infrastructure. But if you look at football infrastructure in Africa, it's massive. And that's the reason you get those best talents out there. And we want to make sure that that infrastructure is built across the world through Brave Gyms model. And that is something that we're going to be actively introducing to every country that we go to. But ultimately, our foundation never changes. It is the social cost and the bigger cost of making sure that Brave Combat Federation becomes the face of mixed martial art. When we introduce mixed martial art to the countries that doesn't know what the sport is, we want to make sure that it is going to add value to their tourism, their culture, and their economy, and their youth development program combined together. But at the same time, because it's mixed martial art, you don't restrict it to one sport. Mixed martial art is one of those sports that can be connected to every other sport or every other industry in itself, because the values that you get from training mixed martial art is not just how to kick a good penalty kick. It's more about how to become mentally and physically struggling while finding solution, all happening at the same time. That's fighting. So when you have a competition, what we see is two guys fighting against each other, but what I see is two guys trying to figure out each other in a human chess match, and they're trying to solve the problems. But it's not solving the problems on a board that's sitting in front of you where you can have your water and your cakes when you're doing this, but it's more about me punching your face and you kicking my liver while I am stressed, while family, friends, and the media and everybody's watching it, and I might lose. Losing is not 2-1 in a score line. Losing is another man beating you up. So the mental stress and the physical stress that you go through at the same time in that same speed to find solutions, that's what you need in business. That's what you need in any life, any part of your life. That's the value that you want to take. And if you're equipped to do that, that could be used for any other sports that you want to. And if you don't want to be a fighter, it doesn't matter. But when you leave an academy of mixed martial art, you know that your son or daughter is going to carry some values that can be used across any form of sector that they're going to be excelling in.
That's very interesting. So, rapid fire. Your walkout song if you ever return to the cage. You have to be quick.
Now we're free.
Never be free?
Now we're free, gladiator.
Okay. Next. Coffee or karak before a big event?
Coffee.
Who's the toughest fighter you've ever met, in or out of the cage?
Oh, toughest fighter I've ever met, Mohammed Shahid.
Huh?
Yeah, myself, I guess.
That was a cool answer. If Brave CF had a mascot, what animal would it be?
Oh, very interesting question. I have no idea. I have no idea. Personally, I would like it to be a hawk.
Shahid the hawk.
Yeah, I would like it to be a hawk, but...
We're surrounded by toucans, if you've noticed.
Yeah, but that's we're in mixed martial art, so that's the beauty of mixed martial art, that you're mixing all the different styles and cultures together. So that's one of the things that we look at fighting as well, that you're looking at a tiger or a lion or any of these animals. We want to make sure that everybody has a role in mixed martial art, right? But yeah, if it is a mascot, I would like it to be a hawk, but that would be purely from personal bias.
One country you'd host an event in just for the vibe.
Oh, yeah, I think I would stick to Bahrain. Yeah.
That's very sweet. That's a very sweet answer. It is a very homey vibe, right? I don't think Bahrain has a vibe that any other place could ever give.
And it's not just about like the vibe, like you said, it's very homely vibe. But then especially when you're hosting an event, by the way, you want everybody to be supportive, and that is something that you see in Bahrain. So it's just less when you're here, you see everybody supporting you, everybody's and that's what's happening with the Asian Youth Games. If you look at it, why we're able to host such big events and why it's so much less stress to host event in Bahrain is because you know that everybody is with that same vision. If it's good for Bahrain, we're all in it, you know. So that's why I love the atmosphere of doing an event here. So that again, from an event organizer perspective, I think that's why I would love the energy in Bahrain. Everywhere else, regardless of how beautiful the place might be, the stress of hosting an event will just destroy the beauty of the country itself. Except in Bahrain, you just get everybody's energy, positive energy, and you make the event so successful. And you just give credit to everybody else for doing that, you know, for making that happen.
Very community. I love that. Yeah. A fighter you'd love to see act in a movie, and what role would they play?
Wow, fighters that I'd like to see in a movie, because I'm just looking at our roster in Brave Combat Federation. We have a lot of movie actors looking fighters, you know. So we have Mahmoud Sebi from Middle Eastern roots. So that's a guy I think he could be in a movie. And then you look at Erko Yun, who is another movie star itself. But I think if you're asking me, Pavel Delitko, and he would definitely be an assassin in a movie.
The last message you sent before a Brave event ever went live. The last message. Do you remember it? Do you remember the day? You even remember the date, actually.
The last message
Yeah. Who did you text? What did you text before it went live?
before Brave won.
Yeah. The very first Brave.
I'm sure, I have no idea, to be honest. I would not remember that, but I'm sure that I must have been messaging anyone who must have been standing in front of the cage and covering the opening ceremonies start. I would be messaging someone to remove those guys from there. I think that's what would have been definitely the message if I look back at it.
Who would play you in a movie about your life? Be honest and not humble. You don't have to be humble.
If somebody had to act me in a movie, oh my God.
Yourself, actually. Why not?
I have no idea. I have no idea, to be honest. Yeah.
You can just be yourself again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you would play the best way. If you weren't in MMA, what completely different career would you be in?
If I was in MMA, I would have loved to be in the army. I think that's something that I always wanted to do even before mixed martial art. But to be honest, when I look back today, I wouldn't be in any other place other than being in the field of mixed martial art. But anything that is giving me the opportunity to contribute to something that's bigger than just my goals and my achievements, I would be involved in that.
Describe Brave CF in 3 words, but none of them can be brave.
Oh, okay. I would say courage, passion, and perseverance. That would be the 3 words that I will always...
Thank you so much for coming here today and having such a great conversation with Life and Style. We were so interested in hearing everything you had to say about Brave. And good luck to Brave.
Thank you for having me, and look forward to having you at the show.